For those of you that aren't aware, Sony made an announcement a while ago. This was at the beginning of July. I think it was like the 1st of July, where they basically said that starting in January 2028, they're going to completely stop production on physical video games, on physical media, on discs. No more discs. Which likely indicates that the PlayStation 6 is not going to have a disk drive, even though we don't know. That hasn't been officially confirmed, but it wouldn't make sense for it to have a disk drive if they're not going to be making discs for it. It just feels like it would be a waste to actually have a disk drive in that unit, which then causes us to question, are they going to support backwards compatibility? Is that a thing that we're going to be having? Or is it everything just going to be digital, even backwards compatibility? What happens to people that have a bunch of discs for the PlayStation 5? We don't really know. Everything is kind of like left up in the air. But there's a lot of reasons why having physical media is extremely important. One of those is like, there's a lot of games that eventually get delisted from stores, and there's no other way to get them other than having a disc of those games. There's tons of those, by the way. There's like at least hundreds of examples that you have of that. Not to mention that in the same day that they've made this post, they also announced that they were going to be closing down the digital stores of PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita. Those are pretty much gone. I've heard reports from users that had their licenses revoked. I haven't logged into my Vita to see if that is a thing or not, but I have all the games that I care about already downloaded onto my Vita. But it does suck that, you know, they've mentioned that you will be able to download those games for the foreseeable future, but you don't actually know if that is going to be a thing or not. Since then, people have naturally been talking about this situation, and Sony had released something saying like, only 85% of, most of our sales, like 85% of our sales are actually digital or something along those lines. They've mentioned this in a post somewhere. But apparently they clumped up all of those digital sales in the form of like anything that is a free-to-play game that you download, anything that is a game that maybe only released with the digital version, that it had no physical version, anything that is a fucking skin, free microtransaction, like, or a paid microtransaction, like pretty much anything that is a digital download. They clumped all of that together and then compared it to physical releases, which, as you can imagine, like, some games have literally hundreds of microtransactions. And when you clump all that shit up, then like one single video game you can be comparing the sales of all the microtransactions of one game to the sales of one physical video game, which just doesn't make any sense. It's data that just doesn't make any fucking sense. That's the data that they had released. And we're going to be talking about that because there's actually a really good article that talks about it, which, if I'm not mistaken, is this one. Yeah, it's this one. There's a really good article here that talks about that, so we're going to be talking about that. But this week, we had Matt Piscatella from Circana saying 2 PlayStation video games sold more than 10,000 physical units in the US during the week ending July 11th, 2026, and 7 have sold more than 100,000 physical units year to date. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this is just information that you can't really do much with. You know, you look at this information like, oh, this looks so bad. You know, physical must be in real dire straits. It's like, okay, which 7 video games were these? And what were their digital sales? Were there 100,000, 101,000, 600,000, 10 million? We don't know. We know that 7 of them have sold more than 100,000 physical units. It's like this data just means fuck all. It means nothing because you don't know what numbers are we talking about, what video games are we talking about, how do they sell digitally, which will be more. It will 100% be more, but it would be interesting to know how much more, which is always interesting. But you know, that's just the way that it goes. That's just the way that it goes. He just released this information, and to me, what I've mentioned is that this is just fanning the flames, because like there's kind of like a fight going on right now online where people are mad at Sony justifiably so. I'm pissed off at Sony because I don't want them to just cut down on like physical media. And another thing that people like to say, I've seen a lot of these people saying, it's about time you dinosaurs get screwed, yada yada. There's been a lot of this back and forth online, and people are like, y'all are LARPing, you don't even buy physical video games. And it's like, brother, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean we don't buy physical games? It's like, wait, no, what do you mean? More. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Look, I have games here from the fucking Wii U. From the Wii U, brother. Like, what do you mean we don't buy physical games? Oh, wait, there's more. What do you mean? Look at this. Like, what do you mean? It's funny. It's funny seeing people going like, people don't even buy these games. And by the way, here's an interesting little thing that I like to bring up when I talk about this. You see this? This is Monster Hunter World for PlayStation 4. And this is currently, as far as I'm aware, the only way to experience Monster Hunter World the way that it originally came out. You cannot get the experience of base Monster Hunter World anymore. It is unachievable. And the reason why is because ever since Iceborne came out, they patched the game to include Clagger, as well as a couple of other mechanics. And they've changed the difficulty and, the difficulty curve and all of that stuff. They've changed a bunch of stuff. And when you download the digital version of Monster Hunter World, it comes with all of these things already applied. So the only thing that actually, it's either this or the Xbox version. The only way to actually experience what World was like at release is this. This is another thing that makes physical media very important, so that you have like a snapshot of what these games were like when they released. It is what it is. Other YouTubers lovingly displaying their games where he keeps them in grocery bags. I moved in last year and I don't have the time, brother. I don't have the time to get like nice shelves and put everything nice and neat. You guys know what it's like. It's crazy in here. I barely can get the time to do my work. But yeah, it's like, I think that physical media is extremely important. These people, for whatever reason, they keep coming up with these numbers and all of this stuff. But another very important thing is, he says, only 7 of these games have sold more than 100,000 physical units year to date. So if we go to Does It Play, I don't know if Does It Play has every game that has come out this year, or if it's only like, a couple of games, because I do know that the Does It Play database, it's very hard for them to cover every single game that comes out. But of these games that have come out, let me actually reduce the size of the window a little bit here. Oh, I was looking at some Kill Team stuff. Pay no attention to that. Of every single game that has come out, we have how many releases in here? 44. 44 releases that they've documented from 2026. And out of those, when you get to number... Download required, no yellow. I don't know what this no yellow is. Let me see here. Download required, minor content missing, or a lot of bugs present with a patch. Recommended, more details below. So anyways, the point being is, when you get to number 22, you start getting to a point where these physical releases are not really in the best state for a collector. Because any collector will tell you this, like, if they want a physical version of a video game, they want a video game like this that's going to work. Like, if I put this onto my PlayStation 4, this game will work. It doesn't need an internet connection, doesn't need Sony servers, it doesn't need anything. You plug this into a PlayStation 4 and it works. And that's what most of us that enjoy physical media want. We want a product that works. We don't want a product like, for instance, one of the games that came out this year, even though it's a game that I really, really like, and I've done some coverage of it on the channel, and I have an absolute blast every time I play that game, it's Crimson Desert. Like, that game is awesome, But the physical edition of that game is basically a glorified coaster. It's just a coaster because it requires a download. And without the download, the game doesn't actually work. And whenever you have physical versions like that, most people will not buy them. The reason they don't buy them is because, you know, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to work whenever the servers go down. So why would you need that physical version? That's the problem. And so a lot of the games released this year also don't really have, you know, that functionality of being able to play when the servers go down, so people don't buy them. So that's another thing that also influences this little post here. But on top of it, we also have this article here from CNBC. And this one actually goes really in depth into a lot of the things. Not everything, but it goes really in depth. So we're going to go over this. Key points. 2013, Sony mocked Xbox by showing how easy it was to share a PlayStation disc. More than a decade later, gamers say Sony is becoming the very thing it poked fun at. Absolutely. It absolutely is. Sony's decision to stop producing physical discs for new PlayStation games starting in 2028 could save costs and boost digital profits, but analysts say consumers will lose the ability to trade, lend, resell, or truly own games. I don't even know if they bring it up in this article, but there's also another thing that's important to bring up, which I don't know if you guys remember during the Helldivers 2 debacle, where when Sony decided like everybody needs a PSN account to be able to play Helldivers, fuck you, too bad, yada, yada, yada. And people were like, no, we don't want that. But that was not all. A lot of people were simply not able to create a PlayStation account because there's a lot of places in the world where PlayStation Network is quite simply not supported. And for those people, you just don't get to play those games anymore. Because if your country is not officially supported by PSN, then you can't create a PSN account. If you can't create a PSN account, then you can't have digital video games, because every single digital video game needs to be associated with a PSN account. And there's a lot of countries don't have those. So those countries now, they don't get to play PlayStation anymore. It's gone. Anyway, so the decision to stop producing physical discs could save costs and boost digital profits. Not could save, that was their whole objective, yeah. But analysts say consumers will lose the ability to trade, lend, sell, resell. The move could deal a major blow to the global secondhand gaming market, estimated to cost about $7 billion. This is another thing that a lot of the digital-only folks that constantly, for some reason go to bat for Sony, this is something that they're missing out on. What about the people that can't afford these games when they release? A lot of times people get these games secondhand. In the secondhand market, and that's the way that they're able to experience video games. And then they also get to trade those games back in, and somebody else will get to enjoy them later down the line, and they get more money that lets them buy potentially a new game. This is a whole market that's just going the way of the dodo because Sony just wants to have an absolute monopoly on their bullshit. But let's go ahead and do it some more. Let's go ahead and talk some more about all of this stuff. June 2013. This is the ad. The funny thing is, I always like to bring this up. It's not really relevant, but I was there in the showcase when they showed this ad. I was like, yeah, fucking give it to him. It was really cool, but yeah. Trade in game or retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever. Then President and CEO of Sony Computer Entertainment America, Jack Tretton, said at a conference that same year, when a gamer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game. Line sparked standing ovation and helped intensify the backlash that led Xbox to roll back its restrictive policies. Wait, does this have the actual timestamp? No, it doesn't. It just shows the whole thing. But yeah, I was in the audience during this show. Adam Sessler was there as well, because I remember I ran into Adam Sessler on my way out. But yeah, now in the eyes of some, Sony is becoming the very villain it mocked. PlayStation has announced it will end physical disc productions for new games released in its console starting in January 2028, making new releases digital only. Box retail versions, if they are sold, will contain a download code rather than a disc. One of the first games that will use this model is reportedly Take-Two Interactive's highly anticipated Grand Theft Auto 6, which, like I've said, this is a move that definitely emboldened PlayStation, or maybe they were in on it. Maybe Rockstar knew that PlayStation was doing what they're going to do, and they just decided, okay, let's just speed things along and get it done. I don't know. The economics are in Sony's favor. By selling more games digitally, the company has less need to manufacture physical boxes, so that's a cut in cost, and physical discs are eliminated completely, improving profit margins. Not to mention that basically whenever you want to buy a video game, you have to basically go to Sony. But The important thing is they effectively get to have a monopoly, which they kind of already have a big monopoly, but they get an even bigger monopoly on the whole thing. And on top of it, you'd be thinking, okay, so if they're cutting costs, they're going to pass those savings on to us, right? Right? No. You get nothing. You lose. That's it. That's it. Because the other thing that I always find interesting is, I know that most of you will likely have seen on social media, but another thing that I always find interesting is for the people that are constantly pushing the digital future. No, we're gonna go all digital, fuck physical, we don't care, yada yada yada. They seem to forget that moment where, like, you can go on Amazon and buy certain PlayStation games at a discount right now for like $30 or whatever. I think some of the examples I've seen were like God of War and whatnot being sold for $20-something. And then you go to the actual PSN network and those games are being sold full price. Yeah, you're not going to be getting as many discounts, 100%. You're not getting as many discounts anymore if this goes through, but it is what it is. Michael Pachter, Managing Director of Strategic Planning at Wedbush Securities, told CNBC that the move will save Sony a bit of money. A bit of money? Only a couple of $1 billion here and there. Not too biggie. But there can be no question that the consumer pays the tax in terms of less optionality. Less optionality and worse prices. This can be resold, traded in, lent to a friend, given as a gift, kept on shelf, or preserved after a storefront shuts down. A download code cannot do any of that. Without physical discs, gamers lose the ability to buy cheaper used games or recoup money from games they have finished. The change will give Sony a tighter grip on where games are sold, when they are discounted, and how long consumers can access them. This is a truly ironic turn of events, Kazunori Hito, Director of Equity Research at Morningstar, told CNBC. Sony won goodwill in 2013 by presenting physical discs as the simple, consumer-friendly option, he said. On YouTube, gamers resurfaced Sony's old clips with bitter comments. This is like watching the wedding video after the divorce, one wrote. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, wrote another. Existing physical games and titles released on disc before the cutoff will not be affected. This is an extremely anti-consumer decision that has no legitimate justification and communicates a disdain for players in their ecosystem, Michael Futter, founder of video game industry consultancy F Squared, told CNBC. For Futter, the issue is that consoles are closed ecosystems controlled by the platform holder. On PC, players can buy games through other marketplaces like Steam or the Epic Game Store. Sony would love for us to believe that the PC market's shift to digital is the exact same thing as consoles going down that path. It simply isn't. And by the way, in case you guys don't understand what this means, it's basically because of the, there's multiple storefronts that you can have on PC. They mention here Steam and Epic Game Store. You also have GOG. You also have the EA Game Store for whatever good that is. And you have the Ubisoft Store. And I'm sure there's more that I'm not even remembering. But yeah, you have a ton of marketplaces on the PC side of things. So Steam can't really get, even though Steam has a de facto monopoly, which for those of you that don't know what that means, it's a monopoly that is decided by market than necessarily like an actual monopoly, but it is a de facto monopoly for all intents and purposes because most PC gamers want to get it as much as they can on Steam as opposed to getting it anywhere else, but there is competition there. There's some competition there in the form of Epic Game Store, GOG, Ubisoft, Ubiplay, whatever it's called, EA, and there's a couple of other ones that I'm missing out on right now, whereas in consoles, there's none of that. When you don't have physical media anymore, there's one place you buy your games from, and that's the PSN store, and nowhere else. There's an important difference in players accepting that shift because they see value in it, having it effectively forced on them by taking away the alternative. Renix, thank you very much, being Grossgenessen for 25 months as a Longbeard. You Giga Chad, tip of the hat, appreciate support, thank you. I remember after finally saving enough to buy my 360 almost 4 years after launch, I bought 10 physical games at $10 or less each, some new, other used, but in good condition. Not anymore. Nope, that's not going to happen anymore. It's done. Sony and PlayStation did not respond to CNBC's queries for comment. Sony and PlayStation have not been responding to anything because if you actually go to the X account of Sony, pretty much everything that they've posted since this has been absolutely ratioed. Let me just look up here. PlayStation. Let's see if they've managed to climb out of that ratio because it has been 22 days. You would expect that, the people burning everything down would have... Literally the first post. Okay, but this was from June. Sony's pushing an all-digital future without being upfront about its limits. PS5 downloads can't be played from USB, and expanding storage requires an expensive NVMe SSD. Digital games are licenses, not true ownership. Physical discs preserve choice, competition, and ownership. Wait until Lose Lagoon on PS5, August 27th. Let's see. It would sure be a shame if this... Oh, no. Oh, no. And there it is, ratioed still. So 249 likes to 780 something. Let's see what the comment section's looking like on this post that was made before this live stream even started. Oh look, shielding yourselves behind more phone games for 500, 900 console and soon no discs or ownership. What a great platform. No disc, no buy. Let's do it for physical discs. Physical media. Why do gamers hate us? Fuck you, PlayStation. You will not take our rights away. Give us physical discs. Where are the discs? Not going into any lagoons supported or sold by Sony. I want the option to use physical media. I need a walkthrough of your walkback plan of physical discs in 2028. Like, this is literally, I am not joking. This post was put up like literally 25 minutes ago, it said. Okay? Like, they're not getting away from this. Like, look, EA Sports, again, ratioed, 635, 1.4K. FIFA, okay, you can't ratio FIFA, okay? You can't, although this was from EA Sports, it's not really from PlayStation, so this is a retweet. It's not an actual PlayStation post, so it doesn't count. Out now on PlayStation Plus, ratioed into oblivion, 2.7 thousand to 5.2. Play the extraordinary with Marvel games, ratioed. Okay, this one's not as hardcore ratioed. Still ratioed, though. 6.7 to 7,000. This one's got a community note. The Call of Duty Black Ops one. Sony's pushing an all-digital future, yada, yada, yada. Same usual shenanigans. Ratioed. Ratioed. It's just like ratios nonstop. It's ratio city. I'm actually surprised that people have been able to keep this up for so long, because very rarely do you see backlash that lasts this long when the company in question does not react to it. Because usually whenever it comes to backlash online, if people wait it out, they can usually do just fine, and it usually doesn't last this long. So could it be that PlayStation has actually severely underestimated the amount of people that care for physical media? I think that is absolutely correct. I think you have a lot of people that buy both physical and digital, and those people basically just contribute to the ecosystem. And Sony is thinking that this is an either-or situation. And they forget that for all the people that are buying both physical and digital, the absolute removal of the physical option, a lot of those people are just not going to buy digital anymore. This is going to fuck up their statistics so goddamn hard. It's going to be absolutely insane. But yeah, resale market decline. Sony's move has direct implications for the second-hand gaming economy. Data Intello estimates the global second-hand game platform market, including pre-owned games, consoles, accessories, and peripherals, was worth $7.2 billion in 2025 and will reach $13.8 billion by 2034. So, again, this is another thing that gets influenced by Sony's decision. Realistically, at least 1/3 of games have been sold historically as used, and the games that were sold used also provided currency to the gamer who traded them in as cash to pay for new games, Wedbush's backers said. Brick-and-mortar game retail is doomed. I don't think it's necessarily doomed. I just think it has an expiration date on it. The reason I say it's not necessarily doomed is because there's still quite a lot of games to be sold, from PlayStation 1 games all the way to PlayStation 5 games, to Xbox games, to Nintendo Switch games. So brick and mortar still has a lot of stuff that is getting sold. As a matter of fact, some of the more valuable items that a lot of these brick and mortar stores will have, if they're actual collectors stores, will usually even be NES cartridges. Like, there's some crazy expensive NES cartridges. So it's like, there's still a ton of physical media to go around. It's just not going to be one of those situations where these stores are going to be selling the latest and greatest video games, which is still a big mover of currency, I would imagine, for a lot of those stores. But there is still, something in there that they're going to be able to work out for the next, 10 years or so at least. So there's still business going out for the next 10 years easily. But after that, yeah, things are going to get a little bit tougher. It's going to become more of a collector's type shop than necessarily like a traditional video game store, which fucking sucks. While older games can still circulate even after disc production ceases, that's not possible with digital ones. Morningstar's Ito expects the secondhand market for games to keep shrinking and eventually disappear. Developers will have less flexibility over discounting than PC platforms, where games can be sold across Steam, Epic Games Store, GOG, and other stores, according to Flutter. Yeah, this is the stuff that I was talking about. However, Sony's defenders might argue the market has changed since 2013. Sony's results for full year 2025 showed that revenue from PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 video games is almost 10 times less than revenue from digital downloads of full games. This is that percentage that I was talking about, where they kind of just like cooked the statistics, which we'll talk about. Sony said in this announcement the decision was a natural direction for Sony Interactive to adapt consumer trends. General preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. Ubisoft, oh, we love them. Executive Philippe Tremblay in 2024 said that gamers should get comfortable with not owning your game. Yeah, exactly. Sony also recently announced that PlayStation Store purchasing on PS3 and PS Vita will close in most countries in July 2027. Separately, over 500 previously purchased movies will be removed from users' PlayStation libraries because of licensing agreements, with Sony's notice making no mention of compensation. So this is when they removed like 500 movies that you might have bought. Like, oh, you bought Terminator 2 for your PlayStation? Well, that's gone. Okay, do I get a refund? No, it's just gone. Just fucking gone, bitch. What? What you gonna do about it? Huh? You ain't doing nothing. Okay? We didn't pay the licensing fee and now it's gone. And fuck you. It's literally just that simple. Like, stuff that you've purchased, they just took it away. They're going to be able to do the exact same thing with digital video games, but people have this illusion that this will never happen. But now, going a little bit more into this thing where they're saying that, like, oh, Sony's results full year 2025 showed that revenue of PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 physical games is almost 10 times less than the revenue of digital downloads of full games. This is where I told you guys that basically they're clumping up together all of the data of like DLCs and all of that stuff and putting that up against physical releases. If you actually look at physical releases, and this is from data from the UK, this is from the Game Business. This is a website that went through some of the UK data. This has been verified, but it says here, things are different with PlayStation. However, across Europe in 2023, 55% games sold on PS5 were downloaded, whereas that number jumped to 64% in 2024. Why is this going up? Stop. In 2024. We're only counting games released digital and physically here, not digital-only releases. So in here, they're doing the proper interpretation of things. This is more to do with the types of games released. Some titles are just more digital than others. Online action shooter games tend to do extremely well via download stores. Last year's Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2, for instance, saw over 80% of its UK sales come via digital stores. Why does this thing... Is it because there's a video playing? Can you not? Like, stop pushing me up. There's more to do with for instance, saw over 80% of his, and Sony's own Helldivers 2 was over 90% digital. That's different for single-player, story-driven action games or family titles. Let's take 2023, which had an abundance of these games. 45% of Hogwarts Legacy sales, 49% of Assassin's Creed Mirage sales, and 45% of Resident Evil 4 Remake sales were physical in the UK. Meanwhile, Spider-Man 2 was bought more via physical retailers than digital ones. 54% physical. So Spider-Man 2 sold 54% physical copies. This is UK data. 54% physical versus 46% digital. Okay? Although that does include console bundles, whatever. There were fewer big single-player and family games in 2024, but one of the bigger ones that did launch, Astrobot, which, if I'm not mistaken, won Game of the Year at the Game Awards on PlayStation 5, was 55% physical in the UK and nearly 60% physical across Europe. So in here, in 2024, physical versions of some games were actually outselling digital versions, which is absolutely insane. In other words, that sharp decline in physical game sales has less to do with a shift towards digital and more to do with the release schedule. That's not to say there hasn't been some shift from physical to digital. Of course there was. There has been. We all know it. If we look at the annual sports titles, where we can do some like-for-like comparisons, EA Sports FC was 62% digital in Europe. Again, these are games that often require digital downloads, so having the physical version is quite simply not that valuable. Not to mention that these are annualized video games. So it's like, oh, FIFA 26, FIFA 27, FIFA 28, FIFA 29, FIFA 30. It doesn't really matter. It's not as much of a collector's item as something like, say, an Astrobot or a Spider-Man 2, right? The year before, EA Sports FC was 55% digital, which is by far the biggest shift we've ever seen. Last year's F124 was 70% digital in Europe, whereas F123 was 69% digital, and WWE 2K24 in Europe was 64% digital, while WWK23 was 61% digital. Note, the newer games all sold fewer games than their predecessors, so we are seeing digital take a larger market share, but it's not quite as dramatic as the headline figures suggest. But even still, you're not talking about a 15% or a 5%, which is another number that I've seen thrown out that people seem to have pulled out of their asses, where they're saying like, oh, all physical sales make up 5% of the entire sales, and I'm just like, where the fuck did you get this number? Out of your ass? Like, what are we talking about? Even so, data shows there's still games that are reliable on box market, Switch games, retro games, kids games, family games, narrative games on PlayStation. They still see a high proportion of their sales come from the traditional retail sector. So all of those, percentages that we've been seeing shown out there and thrown in our faces, most of them don't really take these markets into account. Most of them are clumping data from DLCs, free-to-play games, digital downloads, all of that shit pitched up against physical media releases. Most of them don't even take into account that a lot of games only released digitally and don't actually have a physical counterpart to even compare it to. It's like, well, man, why aren't people buying more physical? Because they didn't release the fucking game, you moron! Because it doesn't fucking exist! It's crazy. I know, it's a crazy concept. You can't buy something that doesn't fucking exist. Anyway, continuing onwards, still some were wary of what this step could lead to eventually. What's to stop PlayStation from taking the same actions with game we've purchased? Nothing. Ito expressed concern as well. There's an important difference between players accepting that shift because they see value in it and having it effectively forced on them by taking away the alternative, he said. Most of us prefer to make that transition on their own way and at their own pace rather than having it driven by the end of physical discs. It is what it is. And this is absolutely something that Sony, as far as I'm concerned, should not have done. Because I think that, and the thing is, I say they shouldn't have done it even from a business perspective, because what is happening right now is that there's a bunch of C-suite executives that actually don't understand a fucking thing about this market, because there's a ton of those fucking people around, a ton of incompetent fucking morons, which we have seen a ton of those people make decisions over at Sony. Anybody ever heard of a video game called Concord? Anybody ever heard of a video game called Marathon? Anybody ever heard of a video game called Destiny 2, which was canceled recently? Man, those were fantastic fucking decisions from Sony's leadership, man. Really well-informed shit from people that definitely know what the fuck is going on in this industry. Am I right, everybody? Am I right? There's definitely been no absolute backlash from any of that, you know? No. Nothing like that. So these are a bunch of people that have no idea. Now, the reason I say this is going to come back to bite them in the ass is because one of the main reasons to stick to consoles, this is one of the main reasons why I was, if you guys remember, like 2-3 years ago, consoles were my bread and butter when it came to gaming. I always preferred playing things on a console. It was more convenient. I liked the console experience. I liked the ability to actually be able to go into a store and browse physical video games. But 2 years ago, give or take, I've noticed like this is all going to go away. I could see it happening because a lot of the games that I actually wanted to get didn't make sense to get physically because they required a download. I'm not saying that this was every single game. That's not the point that I'm making. I'm saying that a lot of the games that I was interested in did not have the full game on disc. And because of that, I was like, well, what the fuck? I don't want to buy it like that. If the whole game is not on the disc, what the fuck is the point? I'm just going to buy it on PC then, because at least I have the, you know, the Steam sales and all that bullshit, which is always better than the sales that you get on pretty much any other storefront. So whatever. That's the reason why I made the shift, because I was like, you guys can see the collection I just showed you. I was buying games like every week. Add to my collection. A lot of these I haven't even opened the boxes yet because I just wanted to have them. Like, for instance, this one, I was really excited when I got this one because I was looking for this edition. I couldn't find it anywhere in Portugal. Then eventually I found it. I've never even played the game. I'm excited to eventually play it someday, but I was really excited to get this one for whatever reason. I remember buying it and I was like, oh man, I finally have it. This is great. It's just a collector's. And it just friggin' sucks that we're gonna lose all this. We're gonna lose it. It is what it is. And then you'd be like, okay, but is anybody doing anything about it? Fucking of course not, bro. The video game industry's trade body doesn't want to talk about digital ownership. Kotaku reached out to ESA, and despite ESA saying that one of their main things is protect consumers, empower talent, drive innovation, increase creativity, promote digital wellness, and expand the marketplace, it's more like contract the fucking marketplace, expand the marketplace. We're about to lose $7 billion $7 billion market. The $7 billion resale market, we're about to fucking lose that by 2028. What's the ESA doing? Fuck all. You want to know why? Because all the bigwigs over at ESA work for these corporations. All of them do. It's fucking bullshit. But yeah, that's the situation that we're in when it comes to Sony. They lied about the numbers. Well, they didn't lie about the numbers. They tailored the numbers to suit their narrative, which is something that corporations are exceedingly good at doing. It is what it is. I don't fucking like it. I think it's fucking stupid. And I'm still a fan of a lot of PlayStation games. Don't get me wrong. I like Ghost of Tsushima. I like fuckloads of I want to play Wolverine. Like, there's a lot of PlayStation games I'm interested in. I just think it's fucking stupid that they're taking these steps and that they're not really thinking too much about it, because a lot of the mistakes that Sony started doing was when they moved their headquarters over to California. Like closing down fucking Sony Japan, closing down, what was it? The guys who did Wipeout Studio London or Studio Liverpool. I forget exactly who it was, but like they closed that shit down. No, London is the VR guys, I think, right? So it was probably Liverpool, the guys who used to do Wipeout. But like just not supporting the Sony Japan that brought us stuff like fucking Soul Sacrifice, Bloodborne, all of these amazing experiences. They just fucked it up real bad. And now they're lacking the vision to see that the reason why a lot of people own these consoles is because they want to engage in physical media. They want to. But if you're going to take this shit away from them, you're absolutely going to regret it. Because like I said, a lot of the people that are buying digital goods, they're the same people that are buying physical media. And you take the physical media away from them, they're not going to want to buy the digital stuff anymore. And you're going to find out in real time. Because like I said, I'm shocked that the backlash is still going. That a post that was made literally 25 minutes ago on a fucking weekday, it got ratioed in real time in 25 minutes. It was probably ratioed in shorter time, 25 minutes. 25 minutes was just when we got to it. And this is 21 days after they've made the announcement. This isn't going to stop. There's no coming back from this. This is absolutely insane. But you know, it is what it is. I think that there's a significant lack of vision over there. And I think that they're definitely going to regret the decision that they've made with this stuff. But we'll have to see how it evolves.